Yo, 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 visualize shark takes, hit the wave grinding. In the chat, gun shark odds make it rhyming. Sunday vibes, smooth bets, no confining. Hats engaged, can't stop us from shining. Bet on the spread, liking it, keep it tight. Push the odds further, jack on the hindsight. Odds fellows mind grasping the right sight. Hats, caps on heads, winners in plain sight. Hit the light, get in the chat, feel the flow, cash it, every dollar see the bank roll. Sunday grind and picks, now you gotta know. Extra points on the screen, sharp minds always glow. Big parlays, predictions we home. Standing tall, betting knowledge all.
On a suddenly not so casual Thursday in February, it is NFL The Extra Points, the big show, Super Bowl edition. I was saying to the gun before we got on here, how did we get here so soon? What a season it has been. Recording live now on Thursday. Of course, the game on Sunday, the 9th, will be a showcase. It is the Shark, the Gun, and the Odds Fellow. Guns Picks. What's going on, brother?
Man, yes, bittersweet ending to the NFL season, but we had a great one, especially myself. I had a plus 28.1 units this season, a ton of plays, a ton of cashes, and now we got to end it off with the Super Bowl with, I guess, two teams that probably most people hate, but there's a Super Bowl nonetheless, and we're going to be breaking down the plays, the side, the total, and the props, and we have the Odds Fellow in the building. What's going on, my friend? How you doing on this Thursday?
Hate. I'm drinking that haterade for Philadelphia. But hey, I think they're we got a storybook finish here in the NFL. Two teams that definitely deserve to be there. A little revenge factor maybe in play for one, dynasty and history in play for the other. So you really can't script it any better, although the fans, mainstream media, everybody might not love it. We love it. We love to see it. Can't wait for the big game on Sunday.
Not waiting around. We're going to talk a bunch of stuff on this show. We got props, we got totals, teasers. We have a conversation. Of course, one game. We usually go on here for about an hour talking, 14 games. We can probably talk about this one for 2 hours. We got so many angles. We're going to dive into it and get direct to the business. 6:30 on Sunday, Birds, Chiefs, round 2. 2 years ago in Arizona, Birds take a loss, 38-35, took a huge lead to the locker room, could not hold it in the second half. The story of Mahomes' career, a comeback artist at the highest order. Of course, a lot of angles and media narratives swirling about the refs moving the game left or right. We don't know about that, but we know we're opening the broadcast, throwing it to the gun, a teaser. The Gun's feeling frisky on Super Bowl Sunday. Philadelphia over a touchdown, plus 7.5, and the over 42.5.
Yeah, I guess it's called the insurance bet on both sides. I lean towards the side, I lean towards the total, and I might as well just put it in a teaser to make it an official here. When you look at these two teams, really, I would give the edge statistically to Philly. I think they're a great run team, obviously. They're number one in rush play percentage. They're fourth in rush yards per play, first in rushing attempts per game, second in rush yards per game, first in rushing TDs per game. And that's because when you have Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in the backfield, why give the ball to anybody else, right? Because you don't have to. But I think it's going to be a different element here. We'll get to that as we transition more into the show. But let's look at the defense here for KC. Top 10 rushing defense, right? They're 9th in opposing yards per play and opposing rush yards per game this season. However, this defense has shown some vulnerabilities in the running game as of late, giving up 164 rushing yards per game in the last 4 games, giving up 4.9 yards per carry. And granted, yes, there is one game that is kind of the asterisk in that one, is that the Denver game, but they gave up a ton of yards to Houston at home. They gave up a ton of yards to James Cook and the Buffalo offense. So this is a team with vulnerabilities in the rushing game late in the season. Also, you got to look at this defense for KC on the passing side. 19th in opposing pass completion rate, 17th in opposing pass yards per play, 19th in opposing pass yards per game, and they're 14th in QB sack percentage. So I think there's vulnerabilities on both sides of the ball here for the KC defense. On the offensive side, though, you've seen this KC offense light up, right? Even though their numbers don't really say that, you have a KC pass offense that's ranked 10th in pass play completion percentage, 19th in pass yards per play, and 15th in pass yards per game. And then with the Philly defense, they have one of the best pass defenses in the league, right? 19th in defensive DVOA, second in rush defense, first in pass defense as far as DVOA is concerned. But we've seen some, a little bit of vulnerabilities on the pass and the rush game in a couple of these games. So there is some elements of scoring that could be happening on both sides of the ball here. Then you got to look at the line functionality on this one. You have Philly that's 7-2 ATS away from Philly this season. They've actually played better on the road than they have at home. They're also 3-0 ATS as a dog this season. All those were outright wins. So yes, and then when you look at this matchup, a lot of the times you got to take the dog. I mean, historically, that's what's happened when KC plays Philly. And then you just have the factor in nobody in the history of the game has ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row. There's plenty that won back-to-back. Nobody's made a three-peat. It's very tough to do. Situationally, I lean towards the Philly side, but I think with the total here, I think there's some vulnerabilities on both sides of the ball, especially with the defenses. Granted, both these defenses are very good, top 10 defenses, but we've seen some situations during the playoffs where, yes, you could take advantage of them in the past. Yes, you could take advantage of them in the run. I saw the LA Rams do it against Philly. I saw Buffalo do it against KC last week. So there are opportunities, and with those great minds that are on both sides of the ball for the coaching staff, I think we're going to see a lot of point scoring in this one, and that's why the total is sitting here at 48.5, 48, 49. Why isn't it sitting at 46 like it was the last time they met in the Super Bowl? Why isn't it sitting at 43, 42 that you would see typically with a underline with Philly? Where I'm going to take it on a teaser. That's why, because I'm a little bit confused with the line. So I'm going to take it at Philly plus 7.5. That gets me over possession because I think whoever has the ball last probably going to win the game. And then you're going to get over the total, 42.5. I think that's low enough to get over there. So yeah, give me the 6-point teaser, 7.5, and the Philly plus 7.5, and the over 42.5 for my teaser.
Yeah, and jumping off it, we're going over. Guys, you're not confused anymore when you hear this take. I'll tell you that. This over is a great look. It's the best look in the game. It's my only official play in the game. We're going to drop some props, but props in the Super Bowl, a little more fun. You know, you sprinkle a quarter unit, hang out, order a beer, whatever. This is business. Let's talk about it. Over 48.5. This is a great spot to buy low on Philadelphia, and I think they're scaling up. If you look at what they've done in the playoffs, they opened the playoffs with an under against Green Bay at home in the wild card round. And for those of you guys that have been tailing us all year, you are showing immense profit. We did have the under in that game. We went on here a couple of weeks ago and we said, this is going to be an old school leatherhead game. Jordan Love's going to struggle on the road. Sure enough, 22-10, under 45.5. It all changed in a snowstorm on January 19th in Philadelphia. Stafford, Rams, not traveling well. Snow, helping points, as always. We've tried to get rid of that narrative on the show about 100 times over the years. 28-22 over. And then last week, or 2 weeks ago, against Washington, 55-23. And I think this is where it's going to continue upward. And I think it's even more specific than that. Philadelphia did cluster a lot of unders in the regular season, 7-10 versus the over, but they were 4-2 versus the over on the road or neutral outside of the division. And key point, neutral, only neutral game. They played the opener in Brazil, and the game went way over, 34-29, 824 total yards in the game. And when I was capping this, I thought to myself, what time was that game in Brazil? Because I knew that there was a time change. Well, geography here on NFL The Extra Points. Sao Paulo is 2 hours ahead of Eastern time. So that game actually started at 10:50 p.m. on their body time, which does add 2 points. This being 6:30, 5:30 in New Orleans. Abstract time in sports always means more points. And the Kansas City side of this game, I think, leans towards more points as well on the same idea of scaling up. Of course, KC got a bye. Then they went under against Houston. We told you guys that was an under. And we told you they go over against Buffalo, also officially. And they went way over It's coming way up. I got a couple more comments on this, but we don't want to leave you sitting there just listening. I know you haven't gotten to an official take on this, but have we convinced you yet?
No, I knew I was always probably going to be there on the over with you guys. I think the line functionality alone speaks to it and what these teams have been doing in the playoffs. I think in Philly, you also get a little bit of that bend, but don't break defense. And that works depending on the offensive scheme you're going against. And I don't think that works well against Patrick Mahomes. And the Eagles have continued to be efficient and protect the ball. Both of these teams have been protecting the ball all season. They take advantage of short fields when they can. But in a game like this, where you still get some of that ultra competitive, we've talked a lot about the last few weeks about the analytics too, pushing the narrative a little bit, the fourth down stuff, right? That is all going to keep coming in this game, and you're going to get that perfect game flow here to push you over this number. So I'm on board with the over. I think we're going to get a primetime shootout, and I think this is going to be a tight one. I'm really struggling personally with the side, but I love the points, and then we'll get into the props a bit because I got some other angles too.
Yeah, and we'll get into the side here in a minute. I just want to jump back off it because something that I really enjoyed about handicapping this, I got to be honest, these are two out-of-division opponents. They don't play regularly, but they have played both in the last 2 years. So, of course, it was Super Bowl 57, as I mentioned, 38-35. That was supposed to be an over. I'm not sure what number Guns was talking about when he dropped his take on this. The final line, at least, I saw was 51.5 for that game. So that was a notable over line. And in that particular season, those teams were playing similar stylistic ball as to what they play now. So the over was, I would say, most people, but the line told you the story. And then last year in the regular season, it was Monday Night Football Week 11. Philadelphia traveled to Kansas City for the revenge game. Philadelphia did win the game. Key point, though, 21-17, under 45.5. So books had seen that Super Bowl over with a high line, and not even a year later, moved it way down and were correct. And now they move it up from 45.5. The open I saw was 50. This has gotten steamed down a little bit. We're not worried about market action here. This is pure line functionality. I have this game graded to hit 55 points. Official play over 48.5. And now let's talk the side, because I think the side is incredibly interesting. I got to be honest. You know, some Super Bowls are blowouts. We all kind of grew up, at least the three of us and a lot of our followers, watching Cowboys Super Bowls in the 90s. And I remember when I was really young thinking to myself, so this is how it goes down? The Cowboys just come in and hammer down on the Bills and these other garbage AFC teams. I mean, you talk about like brainwashing a young kid. I think I was 8 and I was like, oh, okay, so the Super Bowl is always just a blowout, right? Well, no, not really. And I think this year we're going to see a classic. I really think we're going to see a classic. Guns, any thoughts on the side here?
Yeah, as much as I want Philly to, I think I can't tell if it's my heart or my head, like trying to tell me like what side to be taken on this one. Here's the problem with the side on this one is like, yeah, I thought early on the value, as long as you got it, like as soon as the games ended on Sunday and you saw the initial line on the Super Bowl, I felt that was probably the best money line value that you would get with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I was right. Now you're seeing it like kind of dip down to like 106, 105. I haven't looked at it recently, but it was at 110 initially on a lot of the books when the line opened. So I thought there was value there to go take the dog just on the sheer fact that you knew that every time these two met, it was always the dog that kind of had the advantage and usually came out the victor as the outcome on that one. So I was kind of looking at it that way. But I you start thinking about like the history of like just KC being in the Super Bowl, how wild things happen. We even saw it last year against the 49ers. You thought the 49ers had a chance. Went to overtime, coin flip went to KC, and lo and behold, KC won the game on the first drive, touchdown. Sometimes it happens that way. But so I do think statistically, just looking at it from if in a vacuum, say it wasn't a Super Bowl and you're looking at
guns
these
to your head pick. The guns to your head pick.
Guns to my head pick.
Guns to the head pick.
Philly is the better team on both sides of the ball. They have the better defense. They have the better run game. Their offensive line is a little bit banged up. That is a concern, but also KC's line's banged up. I think there's going to be issues there. But if you're looking at the coaching element, I think the coaching advantage is on the KC side. Just knowing that those guys have worked together for so long, it feels like the New England Patriots kind of camaraderie there. It's tough. It's tough. I think God and everybody wants Philly to win because everybody hates KC, which is a detriment to everybody. It's like, that's why I put it in a teaser, because I thought that was kind of the best way to play this one, because I felt it was a possession or less either way. The way I love this one is the over. I think the over is the best play on this one as far as side total is concerned. And then we can just play around with the prop market, because I think the prop market, there's plenty of opportunities to bet on. So, yeah, side-wise, you don't have to bet a side in the Super Bowl, but if you do, I lean towards Philly.
Yeah, I mean, I think betting a side here is, if anything, interesting. It's fun. Our guy exactly says it's turned into good versus evil. Well, exactly. And when you look at this game, I mean, this has really become people rooting against what seems to be the refs one-sidedly just calling games towards Kansas City. I mean, you go back to the AFC Championship game, a couple really tight calls. Josh Allen, 4th down. I mean, you could literally flip a coin 50 times. And I mean, the Kansas City side got absolutely an advantageous call there. But in terms of the actual game and who we would lean to, I got to be honest, it's a coin flip. I'll tell you what books think, however. So, as Guns mentioned, the underdog has functioned well in this matchup, but both games have been statistical outliers, and I think that's really interesting. If you go back to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, Philadelphia was actually favored in that game at close, -2.5, and did lose outright by 3. So books did miss the line in terms of their grading. But if you actually look at the game, Philadelphia dominated the game. They had 417 yards to only 340 for KC. Philadelphia had close to 36 minutes time of possession. KC only had around 24. And KC really got aided by a defensive touchdown in the first half when it looked like the game was about to get totally away from them. Philadelphia came out with some margin and some aggression. That defensive touchdown kept the game in reason so they could come back in the second half. And the game last year that I mentioned before on Monday Night Football in the regular season in Kansas City lost by 4, 21-17. Kansas City was favored in that game -2.5. So books missed that one as well. And that game, again, was an outlier based on the yardage dispersion. In that game, Kansas City outgained the Eagles 336 to only 238. And somehow Philadelphia outscored them 14-0 late in the game to come back and win. So the point here is, do books miss this game 3 times in a row? The Eagles were supposed to win the Super Bowl numerically, and the box score spoke to it. It was an outlier KC result. KC was supposed to win in the regular season as a home favorite. Philadelphia won, outlier box score. So the books think Kansas City is going to win this game, and they think Kansas City is going to win this game by 2 points. It's going to be a classic. It's going to be high scoring, but that's what the book thinks, and that's why you guys are up so much money betting with us in this sport, because we bet with the books. We don't try to beat the books with our great narratives and side angles. We trust books, and we report to you what they think. 2-point Kansas City win. I think somewhere in the range of 31-29. That all being said, I was talking about the game that was played last year in Kansas City, and I said Philadelphia only had 238 total yards in the game. And now all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts' passing yards prop alone is 213.5. So talk about a game flow reversal expected in this one. We told you the over, but we think passing yards over is going to be the angle to bet. We're going to have a great discussion on this. We're going to open with the gun, a couple prop overs in the passing game. First one, Philadelphia tight end Dallas Goedert, yards over 51.5.
Yeah, I mean, if we're liking the passing yards on this one, if you think it's going to be a high passing game, then Dallas Goedert is going to get his targets in this one. Primary target for Philly in the playoffs. I mean, consistently 62.6 receiving yards per game in the postseason. On the defensive side for KC, if there is a weak point of that pass defense for KC, it's against the tight ends. They give up the second most receiving yards this season to tight ends. And then you got to look at KC as giving up 58.8 receiving yards per game to the main tight end in their last 7 games. Now you're seeing the prop here at 51.5, and Goddard is just the hot hand for them right now. He's tough to tackle. He finds ways to get the ball in one-on-one situations. I think KC just has consistently struggled against tight ends, especially when you have quarterbacks that love to pass the tight ends like Jalen Hurts does, and you've seen it in the playoffs over and over again. I think Goddard's going to get his looks in this one. I think he gets over his receiving props here, maybe even by the first half. We'll see what happens in this one. So give me Dallas Goedert over his receiving yards at 51.5 as the play.
Yeah, and had you looked at any of the prop markets here, any of the angles on the passing versus rushing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple angles on the one thing I wanted to say on the prop market specific to the Eagles, especially if you like the Eagles side or you like Hurts to get going on the passing yards, which I don't disagree with, is Jalen Hurts' MVP odds. Because when you break this thing down, because of the scrutiny and kind of swirl around Hurts, if you believe the Eagles are going to get there, and you know, you can certainly play it that way. But when you zoom out, he's not the favorite on the Eagles side because of Barkley and because of some of these other pieces. So he's actually got pretty good Super Bowl MVP odds, better than what you normally see for a quarterback in this market. But the last 26 Super Bowl MVPs have not been awarded to a running back, right? So don't go chasing Saquon. You know, you could certainly with the year he's having, but there's actually great value if you like the Eagles and you like some of these props on also on Hurts in the MVP market, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, I was taking a sip of water. I thought you were going to ride the wave, but
I haven't taken
worst timing. It's the worst timing.
We kind of talked about it like early in the show, and this may be a long shot. I haven't looked at the odds in this one, but I was having this thought on my drive home.
I have a bunch of them up, so fire away.
There's one that like I'm not really a future MVP picker. I don't tell you who the first song is at the halftime show. I don't know who Kendrick Lamar is going to be playing in the first song.
I don't even know
or something like that, right? But I think there may be some validity looking at what the AJ Brown props are in receptions and receiving, knowing how he's performed in the playoffs, how high they are. Is there a path where AJ Brown could potentially be the MVP? And maybe if you're looking at some valuation, there might be. And I look at it
a strong play in the anytime touchdown market as well, which I saw.
Yeah, if you're going to be the MVP, you're going to score a touchdown, right? So I think when you look at his numbers, they're a lot higher than they have been in the playoffs that I've noticed, because I've always looked at his props consistently through the playoffs, and on the sheer fact that he's only averaged like 39.6 receiving yards per game. Hasn't really been a factor in the playoffs. They've kind of thrown in other directions. But in this situation, you're going against a KC team that doesn't really guard the wide receiver one very well. And if you get in one-on-one situations with AJ Brown, you're just going to throw the ball and expect him to catch it. So he may have some big catches in this one. And if there is maybe a long shot in this one, knowing how the media has really played this weird dynamic between Hurts, like they're trying to create some friction between Hurts and Brown, and I don't know if it exists or not. He's reading a book on the sidelines. They're playing all this media factor stuff. Maybe this is the game where AJ Brown absolutely just shows out and explodes and just has the game of his life. It absolutely goes in there and just absolutely dominates the game, especially against that weak KC defense. And if that's the case, why not take a little bit of a long shot? I'm not saying put $1,000 on it, whatever your bankroll is. I'm just telling you to put a little what do they call it? Pizza money, beer money,
coffee money.
AJ Brown on the MVP. I just think looking at his prop lines, I just think they're alarming how he's performed in his last 4 games and how the books consistently put him over 70 receiving yards, which is near his average for the season. He hasn't performed well in 6 games. I think this might be an explosion day for AJ Brown.
No, I wouldn't disagree. And I think just when you were talking about that, something that just came to my mind, like a visual here. Like, I feel like the Eagles on the first drive are going to come out just slinging it. And people are going to be waiting for Saquon to like break off a run and like this long drive. I just feel like this is going to be like so contrarian to what people expect. and people do expect the run game. And as you said, fading Saquon is not a good idea because, I mean, Hurts could be the leader of a great passing game, and Saquon could still get like 95 to 110 yards. So it's not a good fade spot, but you want to buy this. And I was just looking at a couple other points, but official here, this is a half unit play. Over Hurts 213.5 passing yards. And this is way above his season average, 189.3. That should tell you the story there numerically. And if you actually go back to the Super Bowl 2 years, Hurts did throw for 304 yards. So that game in the regular season where Philadelphia only had 238 total yards was really a complete anomaly versus Super Bowl expectation. And it's something else about this that, you want to talk about the refs moving the game around and all these side narratives. Here's one for you. Does the NFL want a boring Super Bowl? Like, does the NFL want a game that's like 20-17? You have eyeballs on this game internationally. It's one of, if not the highest watched sporting events every single year. They're not worried about fans that are already fans of the sport. They're focused on bringing new people to the sport. So the key point there is if they're going to bring some guy off his couch or some woman in the middle of Europe or Asia or wherever who's never seen football in her life, it has to be exciting. So if they're going to guide the refs to do anything and maybe like give some sort of angle to the teams, they want this game to be wide open, action-packed, fast-paced. And another point on this, and I'll throw it back to you there, you guys. I think this is really interesting when you cross-reference what happened in the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen only threw for 237 yards in the AFC Championship game. Jalen Hurts, the line is only 20 yards less than Josh Allen put on record against this team. And this is a Hurts situation where you saw it all year. Guns is talking about, the media creating friction between himself and A.J. Brown. I mean, it seemed like they were actually noted as being like great friends before all this. Like really like interesting how it's developed this way. But, the narrative all year was that the Philadelphia game they couldn't throw. It wasn't that they had a great run game and they just were like using it. It was they can't throw. So now I think this is just a fantastic go nuts on this. I might drop a couple more as we go. Really like the over for Hurts, 213.5. Any thoughts?
Nothing else on Philly, so I'll kick it to the gun in case he does on that side. I have a little bit on the KC side of things.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I think if I just want to go back on Shark's point on the passing yards, and I think there is validity to that. I'm seeing, I got a spreadsheet, and I'm going to do a separate show to kind of talk about the prop market altogether, because I feel like I could talk probably 30, 40 minutes on that one just alone. But like just to kind of give you the Cliff Notes version of this one, his passing yards are 15 yards above his season average. So just to give you kind of that variance between one and the other, and especially like he hasn't really passed that much in the playoffs, yet the passing yards total is high on that end. And there's some books that even have it. Oddsfella just put in the chat it's at 2-11 on FanDuel, but that's not the case on every single book. It's 214. I've seen 216s out there. So this line is not staying. It's not sustainable. I don't think it's going to stay at 2-11.5. I think this is going to be something that's going to continue to move, maybe get to the 215, 216 mark before we get to kickoff. I think there is validity in that. Also, pass attempts is going to be a key one on this one too, because the pass attempt prop is above the season average as well. I mean, he averages 23 to 25 passing attempts per game. I think it was like 23 if you talked about it, Shark. But when you see it I think it opened at 25 and a half, and now it's up to 27 and a half. It just keeps moving upward. That is, well, I don't think he's had many games where he's had that other than good rush defenses where he's had over 30. So I think this may be a Jalen Hurts going to be airing it out in this one. I think the coaching staff and the offensive coordinator on that one is just going to be probably geared a little bit more heavy in more of a balance. Maybe this is what the book is trying to tell you is like they're usually really run heavy, but it's probably going to balance out here, knowing that they got to keep the KC defense on their toes and balance things out, and not continually give the ball to Saquon and Jalen Hurts for that matter. Also, look at the rushing props on that one; those are going low too. So maybe some KC under props, knowing that rush defense for the Philly side is going to be good. But yeah, I think we could talk KC now.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to talk about something that's emerged dynamic between both teams that I'm looking at, which I think is very interesting. First drive result, and I'm just looking at the numbers here. For Philadelphia, again, first drive, and I was just saying this, I think they're going to come out slinging the rock to really kind of offset what KC's expecting here. I'm looking at DraftKings right now. This is pretty uncanny. If you look at the first drive result for the Eagles, punt is plus 135. But in terms of actual scores, field goal made is plus 450. Rushing touchdown is plus 400. So pretty much the same probability, field goal and rushing touchdown. Passing touchdown is only plus 500. The gap between rushing and passing touchdown should be way larger than 100 points in terms of probability. It should be about 725 minimum. So books are telling you something that this is going to be a first drive, maybe even a long pass to A.J. Brown. I mean, really. Just interesting reading the numbers as probabilities. Another thing we always love to talk about, yes, you are paying and getting paid probability. The reason why you get 5-1 in return financially is because it's 1-5 to hit. It's 20%. It's all math. You're getting paid on the math. So this is all math. So when you see rushing and passing plus 400, plus 500, which is almost the same probability, the discrepancy is noticeable because the rushing should be higher in relationship to the passing. So it's all passing all around. And we're going to talk about Kansas City now in the prop market. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's one that really jumps out, probably a couple others that I like, and then one game prop that we can finish up with later on. But on the KC side of things, I think because of everything that we're talking in this passing attack, and the stats back it up, the defenses back it up. You know, when you look at the Eagles, Guns just mentioned this, right? Ferocious rush defense. They're only allowing, I think it was good for 6th in the league at 24.4 rush attempts that opponents had per game against them. So they're kind of turning and flipping over into that passing game against a Vic Fangio defense that is just by design, with a good front line especially. They are playing the limit deep shots, right? Kansas City doesn't want to take a lot of deep shots. Kansas City also doesn't turn the ball over. What is all this? Why am I rambling about all this? Because I think you're going to continue to see Patrick Mahomes extending plays and using his legs. And I love Patrick Mahomes over 5.5 rush attempts. So I don't give a shit about the yards, although he'll probably get there on some of the length or maybe some of the longest props, because I think he'll be able to extend some of these plays and get some of that kind of zone underneath areas for him to exploit if that Fangio defense is trying to limit things. But in the playoffs alone, just think about this. His regular season scramble rate this year was at 6%. In the playoffs this year alone, that number skyrocketed to 15%, right? So he is doing that already. And in this type of matchup, he's going to have to be doing even more of that. So I think you can find it anywhere. I've seen between like minus 125 up to like minus 130, minus 135. And I do think Mahomes is going to get that number. I think he probably ends with 8, 9, 10 rushing yards, rushing attempts, something in that range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking of Kansas City props here, Gunn has another official. Hollywood Brown over receiving yards, 39.5.
You call him Marquise. You can call him Hollywood. Just don't call him late for dinner, because we have a good one here with the over on his receiving yards. That's kind of dancing around. I've been kind of keeping an eye on the market. I grabbed it at 39.5, thinking that it would get over the 40, and I was right on that one. So I like his over receiving prop on this one, and it's all predicated on the fact that really you have a Philly defense that's just been solid, especially in the secondary. But I think you have to look at the at least recent analysis, especially in the last 6 games. The secondary receiver has gone over their receiving prop total in 5 out of the last 6 games, right? And then you got to look at Brown's averages: 5.5 targets, 3 catches, 31.5 receiving yards per game. And then you look at Brown's receiving prop here at 39.5. I've seen 42.5s out there. The lines keep dancing around, but either way, it's 8 and 11 yards above his season average. And considering the fact that you're seeing all these props, the passing props, the attempts going up on Jalen Hurts, the yards going up on Jalen Hurts, and the same thing with Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes' passing attempts are high, and his passing yards are high. So I think we could be seeing a dynamic where the ball's just going to get aired out. And when the ball is going to get aired out, especially with that depleted offensive line that Pat Mahomes has behind him, you have tackles moving into the guard position. So they're very depleted in that mode. And what they've done functionally to kind of adhere that is allowing Pat Mahomes to get the ball out quick. It could be screen passes to kind of spread the defense out, or it could be those quick slants like that you saw in the Buffalo game where Marquise Brown was just open, or Pat Mahomes can just move out of the pocket, move with his feet, kind of create time. And then you got guys as quick as Hollywood Brown that are just open down the field. So I think there's going to be opportunities there for Brown, especially against that secondary. You don't want to throw to a Mitchell. You don't want to throw to Slay. It's really tough. So I think the mismatches could exist with Hollywood Brown in this game. And I think you're going to see him go over his prop here. So yeah, Marquise Brown over 39.5 receiving yards. That's a play.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm going to do another half unit official here. I'm going to go Mahomes over passing yards as well. And I think this is exactly what Guns said. This is just going to be a back and forth passing shootout, but there's more to it. There are some good numbers here. The last two times these teams have faced off, in the regular season, Mahomes only had 177 yards passing, and in Super Bowl 57 2 years ago, only 182. And now the line is sitting at 252.5. Let the numbers tell you the story. That is an incredibly transparent northward move. And Mahomes is only averaging 241.7 yards per game on the season, so it's north of that as well. And when you guys were just talking about that, I was looking at a couple of things here. We're talking about AJ Brown. I think Guns likes him in the over market. I was just saying I think he could have the first touchdown. All just candid stuff here as we chatted up. But I looked at the first TD prop numbers. Saquon Barkley is first, obviously, plus 400. AJ Brown is second, plus 800. I mean, that is very transparent. So it's a good look. I mean, I'm not going to give an official on a plus 800, but if you guys want to sprinkle, AJ Brown first touchdown. I mean, God,
value, man. 8-1 is value. That's value. It's like you're not going to get value with Saquon Barkley, obviously. I mean, everybody's going to take Saquon Barkley props like all day long. Same thing on the KC side. What's the number? I want everyone to guess in the room. What's the number one prop that props, I should say, plural, for a certain player that everybody's going to be taking on Super Bowl?
You think you're asking what the most common bet prop is?
Just in general, what player are they going to pick overs on consistently?
Saquon.
Kelsey.
No. Casey. Thank you.
Kelsey.
So there's two players that, in my mind, I'm avoiding.
Right.
Because I know that they can go over. And by the way, Travis Kelsey is not guaranteed to go over 60.5 receiving yards in that game. No. He only had 2 catches and 18 yards.
If you're going to fuck with that, I'd fuck with the receptions because he'll get volume.
He's going against Cooper DeJean. That's going to be the guy that's going to be on him consistently. If you think that he can beat Cooper DeJean in a lot of these cases, be my guest. But if you want to go, I know he's going to get his looks. I know he's going to, especially if it's a very close game, the crutch for Pat Mahomes is to go at Kelsey. And he's going to find him in any way, shape, or form. I get that. That's why I'm not taking it. I'm not stupid enough to take unders and just try to be contrarian either. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that, like, maybe there's certain players that God and everybody's going to be taking. We can take advantage of some of these other areas. Dallas Goedert, Hollywood Brown. We could play with the pass attempts. That's how you kind of play the prop market a little bit. Take advantage of certain situations where you think that maybe they're under disguise, that maybe the books aren't looking at, but the sharps are looking at. So let's get situated, stay away from the main players, and maybe we could take advantage of some of these key contributing players like a Hollywood Brown. And there's some other ones that I want to talk about, but I'm going to save that for another show.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're making a kind of a comical comment about if you're betting unders to be a contrarian. I would also say this, like, if you bet unders in this, you just you don't like life much. Who wants to watch a Super Bowl and want nothing to happen in the game? I mean, like, you got to be miserable. We try to give you guys top-level professional gambling advice on this show, and we do. But we're just talking life here. If you're betting unders in the Super Bowl, particularly player props like across the board, you basically want everybody to suck. And it's just a terrible game.
I know I take unders.
You know I love it.
I do take unders. I'm guilty of it. But if I see the number hit to an over, I'm like, yes, I'm happy because I can cheer. Like that Buffalo KC game, that was so much fun. I was like, this is fun. Overs. But I think we're gonna have the same situation here. I agree with you, Shark, on the overs, but I mean, I'm being a little bit protective with my teaser. But yeah, I think they're in the prop market. I would rather take overs than I would take unders, just on the sheer fact that there's just opportunities with certain players that people probably don't consider that should be considered as weapons, just as the history has shown maybe in the last 2 or 3 games. And then you just have a matchup that is their weak spot, and don't think that the defensive coordinators and the offensive coordinators don't understand those weak spots, and they're going to try to take advantage of them as much as they can.
Yeah, no, without question. I'm seeing here this interesting winning margin prop on DraftKings to pick who wins and by what margin. Both teams are plus 250 or plus 260 to win by 1 to 6 points. That's interesting because I don't think either team wins by more. So if you can pick the winner, you get plus 250. Is that a real thing?
What's the favorite line though? Is that the best?
Yeah. So, but I'm only saying, like, assuming that neither team wins by more than 7.
Right.
KC to win by 1 to 6 points is plus 250, and Eagles to win by 1 to 6 points is plus 260.
Put 100 on a ball.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, what is that? Like, like that shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, you cap the game, you think it's going to be within a possession, you think the total is going to be X. There's other props that are built into the Super Bowl that you can kind of like gear it towards your bet, right? And you just mentioned that one, 1 to 6 plus 250. I was like, that's pretty good. It's like that'd be a line that you'd want to take. I'm not saying you put like a full unit on it, but would you put like 0.1 unit, 0.2 units on it?
Well, here's the other thing. Like, if we're gonna assume that neither team wins by more than 7, which of course anything could happen, but logic suggests inside of 7. If you bet 1 unit on the Chiefs and you win, you return 2.5 units.
Correct.
If you put 1 unit on the Eagles and you win, you return 2.6 units. So you would win either way. Am I wrong?
No.
A unit and a half either way.
Yeah.
So if you bet both sides of this for 1 unit,
Philly and they lose,
still lock in profit.
But you took the 1 to 6. You would technically be up units, correct? Because it's plus 250 versus plus 106, I think, at this point.
Correct. They're both, if either team, if you have 1 unit on to win by 1 through 6, because it's plus 250 and plus 260. Yeah, if you win, you return 2.5, and you lose 1 on the other side. So you win 1.4 units there. And if the Eagles win by 1 through 6, you win 1.5 units. Yeah. Fucking it. They're like giving you money here.
The worst thing that could happen to you is similar to what happened last year. You took that similar type of take, and then you go into overtime. KC wins the coin flip, and they win by 6.
Oh, a push. Yeah, push.
But I wonder in that case, because a lot of times in those, it's not a push on those markets. That type of prop market, when FanDuel and DraftKings are hanging these without that hook, they pay out on the 6. You lose on the 7. So overtime, you still be protected.
It is. There is an interesting caveat there. In overtime, they're making money. Hypothetically, there's not a lot of overtime in the Super Bowl, but we saw one. Right. I was told Atlanta. We saw one last year. Who knows? We don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, 45 minutes in the books here. The final show of the year. We appreciate all you guys for hanging out with us all year and, of course, profiting immensely. The Gun and I are up a combined something along the lines of 70 units, 65 units, something like that. We've been honing in on the NFL for the last 4 years. It's really come to fruition for us the last 2 years. We had a great season last year as well. We will be back in August. Crazy to say. It's going to fly by. It feels like it was just August and we were opening up Knowledge for College Week 0. But here we are, Thursday, February the 6th, closing it out. NFL, the extra points, the big show, Super Bowl 59 edition. Birds, Chiefs, a classic in the making. My official play in this game, as discussed, to the death of it, over 48.5. Odds fellow alignment on the over Mahomes 5.5 rush attempts, and looking at the shortest TD prop. Tune into the odds fellow for a final on that. The gun with a teaser, Philadelphia plus 7.5. We just talked about the 1 through 6 thing. We think it's going to be a tight one. Over 42.5 in the teaser. Yards over receiving 51.5, and Hollywood Brown receiving yards over 39.5. We appreciate you guys immensely. We'll be back before you know it. Tune in to our stuff. I got an NBA show on YouTube. Guns is capping college basketball at the highest level, and the odds fellow will be around and dominating always. For odds, my guy always, and the gun. Pleasure, guys. Hell of a season. Guns, close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, you mentioned the breaking ankles. We're on a nice little run, going, I think, 6-2 in our last 8. We are 13-9 on the year. I'm going to do another show tonight. If you want to check it out tonight, go ahead. But I'm going to have that thing posted so you wake up tomorrow morning, you can grab some early lines in college basketball. Not a big slate, but I may have 2 plays for you on that. So go check that out on the Guns Picks channel, and make sure you check out the Shark Wars Nation channel on YouTube, and you check us out all on X, Guns Picks, Shark Wars, Shark in Sports 88, and the Odds Fellow on X. And that's going to do it here for the Breaking Ankle Show. Also, I'm going to do some nerd talk. I'm going to do a very special prop gun show on Saturday to talk all Super Bowl props. I'm going to bring a lot of spreadsheets. It's going to be Teacher Tay without the boobs. But I will do whatever I can to kind of titillate your mind with some numerical numbers. But that's going to do it here for the Gunsmith.
God,
what is
God,
the show again? The extra points.
God, before you close that out, I just want to let you know, you said you were closing out breaking ankles. I didn't want to let you close it out without saying NFL the extra points.
I know. That's why I stopped myself. I said, as you catch myself, I go, I don't know what show I'm on anymore. I was like, the Extra Point Show. That's it for the year. Book ended. Let's cash all these tickets for the Super Bowl to end it off right. Let's dominate the Super Bowl. And as always, let's keep dancing. Goodbye.
Guns.